Welcome to Behind the Story. I'm Naomi Craig. I write historical novels set in Bible times. We're so glad you're here with us. And I had a great pre-recorded interview with Lynn Watson and her new book, Tangled Promises. And if you love seeing this great content and hearing about book giveaways, be sure that you are subscribed to Behind the Story so you don't miss anything. And also ring that notification bell so it pops up in your YouTube feed right away. So I had a great chat with Lynn. Loved hearing about her book and about all the other creative endeavors that she has in her life. And I think you will really enjoy this. I looked on Amazon. I was really drawn in by the sneak peek that they give, and I think you will really enjoy this book. So without further ado, here is my interview with Lynn Watson. Our guest today is Lynn Watson. She is a devotional writer, occasional quilter, reflexologist, and great-great-granddaughter of a baron from Southwest Germany. Lynn combines her passions and her heritage in stepping through time, stitching stories of faith. Snippets of her family inspire her fiction writing. Lynn, welcome to Behind the Story.
Thank you.
So for those who aren't familiar with you, tell us about you and what you write.
Mom, grandma, wife, cat mom. I've always loved being creative. And it has been a long time dream that I would write a novel, but never anything I ever thought would really happen. And kind of surprised me, but God brings the dream. Here we are, And I've written since I was a child. The only thing that survived is a little bitty newspaper article about this big that was printed when I was 7 years old in a small town newspaper. It was a little story about my brownie troop. And for some reason, I still have it. We moved so many times that everything else just disappeared. That traveled with me some way or another. So that's been kind of fun to be able to say that's my first published piece and be able to push it off that way a little bit, and over the years, I've written Bible studies for women's groups I've been a part of, and my love for essential oils led me to write 3 devotionals, Cinema Brosia Inspirational Collection for Women, and she's just a made-up character that owns a coffee shop, her grandmother's coffee shop, and she and her friends gather there, and they talk about all kinds of things, but there's a lot of real-life stories that I've borrowed from people all over the place that have shared them with me, and dug through the Bible for the botanicals that put it all together, and we can talk about that a little bit more further in some of the later questions. But Johnny Alexander, I didn't think I'd ever get those published either. And Johnny Alexander was in my Sunday school class for a while, and she kept saying, "You need to come to this Mid-South Christian Writers Conference." And I was like, no, I've not got enough. And she goes, yes, you do. Write something and bring it. And so I finally wrote one of the devotions that showed up in those books, and had a one-on-one with Harriet Michael, who said, this is really fresh. This is really, a fresh perspective. It's timely and it's good. And I think you should go for it. And it did we finally self-published those, but came out over a period of about 2.5 years with all 3 of those books. So went from there.
Wonderful. Well, your debut actual full-length novel is Tangled Promises.
Correct.
Clara Reinhold's father publicly pledges her hand to Georg Wolff. His character and arrogance match the stench of his odious cigars, but his lineage offers a suitable alliance for the station of a baron's daughter. A charades clue years earlier turned friendship into promise of forbidden marriage between Clara and family carriage driver Daniel Becker. So what is the story behind Tangled Promises?
Well, my great-great-grandfather was a baron in Southwest Germany. When you say baron, it sounds really impressive, but it was more of a mayoral role.
Okay.
But he was very much responsible for this community. And
Okay.
from my understanding is that his land holdings were pretty vast, and was his bank account and his influence in the community, in the state, that sort of thing. And so anything that I think he was probably, I assumed he was well liked in the community. I don't know that, but I just sort of made that assumption. Um, there was no reason to believe he wasn't. But following the rules of nobility would have been very necessary to him to avoid losing everything. Um, he had in mind for my great grandmother to marry this man that she just absolutely she loathed him. She had no use for him. She was in love with the carriage driver. That's true. And I projected that persona onto Craig Reinhold, Clara, the main character's father in Tangled Promises. So Clara and my great grandmother do have a little in common. She is the Baron's daughter in the book also. She is in love with the carriage driver, and she does loathe Georg, who you will also love to hate.
Yeah. I mean,
The
you've
villain.
even given him name of Wolf, so he's kind of got
That's right.
a
Somebody said
sinister feel going in anyway.
somebody said you should have named him Lamb and just made it, really kind of
Ironic. Yeah.
ironic. Yeah, there's a good word for it. But anyway,
Oh, I love it. So, tell us about Clara, and obviously your grandmother is in there in her
yeah,
character,
she would
but
have been my great grandmother,
great grandmother. So
who I
what?
had
What?
never met.
Yeah.
Never met her. I never heard much about her until maybe 20, 25 years ago that I even really knew much of the story. I mean, I knew she died when my mother was the youngest of 10 children. So her grandmother would have been her grandmother. She passed away when my mom was 4. So she
Yeah,
didn't have any stories of her.
I
And
see.
yeah. So, I mean, it's when my mom passed away in 2001, is some of the stuff started coming out in the family, some of the information, and finally nailed my oldest cousin down, and he had some information, and it had been collaborated by an uncle, and so we went from there, and that's just, and it's only about that much, but it was enough to kind of seed the story a little bit.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So
yeah.
tell us about Clara. What are her strengths and weaknesses?
Okay, well, she's determined and she's strong, she's kind-hearted. um she wishes to honor her family. Faith is important. She believes God created everybody equal. That was just, that was a big thing to her. In her situation, she finds herself torn between the person she was born to be and the person she wishes she could be.
Sure.
Um, her heart, a good mix of respect and rebellion. Within the story, she learns that people aren't always who she thought they were. Sometimes that's shocking, but one of her, think the strongest things is she doesn't really become embittered. She's very challenged by it. She's frustrated. She's angry, of course, that her father is pushing this marriage on her that she doesn't want, but she doesn't become embittered about it all. And I think that she works through the challenges she faces by holding on to her childhood loves and dreams, and a way to fight through for truth and for hope. It's kind of how I see that. There's a bit more to what I know of my family story that could fit into that, but I don't want to say it because I don't want to spoil anything for people.
Oh, I was gonna say, what other snippets can you tell us about your family? But
That's about
that's
as far
just
as I can go with it right now.
okay. Spoiler alert here. All right.
Yes, spoiler alert. I don't want any spoiler alerts. So
So do you have somebody who is a genealogist in your family that has collected all this info for you?
I had several different ways that I've gotten a lot of the information. I have, in my reflexology practice, I have a client who is really into genealogy. And so when I started really at this, really going at it, she dug for me and she found
Oh,
a lot of
cool.
the pieces of information we needed. And so that helped a whole lot. And there's been people that have put things up on the
Ancestry or whatever.
family, yeah, that family search or whatever it is. So things have popped up there, and it's been interesting because there have been family members that some of my cousins and I have talked about that we knew were out there, and we heard about them all the time, but we never met them. And I've since, it's my mom's cousin, that grandma would talk about her niece and her niece's girls. And so this would have been one of them. Well, I met her sons, have a singing duo, and they go around different places all over the country and even the world doing an Everly Brothers experience. And I got to meet them at our local venue here. They were performing back in December. So, we're trying to make a little bit of a connection there. So it's interesting how God orchestrates things.
Yeah, my grandmother was very big into genealogy too, so she really enjoyed. Like it felt like a detective mystery, and there's some unsavory types that you're probably better off not knowing about. But
Yeah, it isn't. Yeah, but as far as my own, having anybody in my family that did the genealogy, no.
Mm.
I mean, it was one of those things that, once I think that that oldest cousin that I mentioned, I think
Yeah,
he had done some, and I think when he started digging up some stuff, he went to Uncle Henry and said, is this true? Is this true? Is this true? And he confirmed it, and he and I had an opportunity to talk a few years ago, and that was, we went from there. He's in his 90s, and at this point, I'm not sure how reliable, that would,
yeah.
or if I could even get in touch with him anymore. So um, I think he told me all he knew, which
I
wasn't a
love it.
whole lot. And it's just, it's been a matter of asking around. And
Yeah. And I love what you said about just enough to seed the story too. So I write biblical fiction set in Bible times, and sometimes I only get one verse about my people. And so
yeah,
it's that same concept of just the Lord giving that story, and it just expands and grows. And
Rose, right? So I think that's probably most of what I can tell you about Clara without going
okay.
too.
Yeah, if you want to hear more about Lynn's family that influenced it, read the book and then reach out to Lynn so you can have the book talk about it. So no
Okay.
spoilers here.
No spoilers, that's right.
So you've got some great reviews up already. On Goodreads, you have a reviewer who says, I recently heard that if an author can keep the reader guessing, they're doing their job. Lynn definitely does that. I had no idea if Daniel and Clara would be together. They had so many obstacles and I could not see a way around them. And then another one on Amazon, the mystery became more interesting and as different tangles unraveled, then other secrets appeared. Then a very surprising ending. So I love that thread that people are commenting on. So talk to me about writing the mystery aspect and all those tangled threads that you wove through.
Wow. Well, the first title for this book was Clara's Cameo. Um, my
Like the
grandmother,
necklace
like a
or
brooch.
brooch? Okay.
My grandmother had one. She wore it every single day. Not every single day, I'm sorry. Every single time she got dressed up, she always wore it. And I have one picture of her. She was very camera shy. She didn't like to be on the camera. I have one picture. You'll probably find it on my Facebook page if you go looking. And you can see most of it right here where the picture cuts off that she was wearing it. And I always wondered where it came from. And so that kind of sparked all this before I even knew, very much. That's just been something that's been in the back of my mind. And so where did it come from? And the only stakes in the story initially were probably the two men that she had to choose between, and that wasn't really an answer at all to where the cameo came from. It wasn't enough stakes to build a story around. And so I had to just start putting the characters on the page and put her and her father on the page and Daniel and Georg and let the pieces fall. And as I did, they just brought an eclectic cast along with them of characters who all brought their own pieces of the story and the mystery and the tangles, and they just kept twisting together until I think the most fun scene to write was the scene where it all got untangled and the truths all came out. I think everybody was together at that point and
Okay.
on the page. And so I think that was probably one of the more fun things to do.
All right. So a lot of authors can vividly see their characters. Do you feel like since it was kind of close to home that they were more personal and vibrant for you, or do you feel like, I mean, I don't have that vividity. Like I can't see it like a movie playing out. I have to really slog at it sometimes on my end. But how does that work being close to the characters like that?
You know, I had a hard time finding images of the people that I really wanted to represent the
Yeah.
characters in the book. I had some thoughts, and some of them were more clear than others, and I do have a picture of my great grandmother, and so that was something, to kind of look
Yeah.
at and go by. But as far as sometimes I would see it unfolding in front of me, and sometimes I just had to kind of wrap my brain around it and go, okay,
Just wrestle
listen
through
to
it.
them and
Yeah.
right through it and listen to what they're saying, and
Yeah.
none of these characters were shy about, bringing their parts of things in. Sometimes it wasn't honestly, but
You've got some scoundrels in there,
some
huh?
scoundrels in there, exactly.
Oh, goodness. Well, great. If you're watching this, we'd love for you to comment. Let us know um, a family story and that you are aware of in your lineage. And we'd love to see that. You never know, it might end up in its own historical novel here. So comment below. Let us know uh, an exciting story from your family's genealogy. So you and I have talked about this briefly, but tell me about the story behind your lovely cover. How did you come across that?
I wanted the little girl to have a red or purple, something really rich color dress. But a cover designer had kind of put something together, and the girl didn't, she had hair that I didn't really like, and I made some comments about it, and I probably pressed a little too hard actually. And I wanted a German, some nod to Germany, whether it be the half timber home with, and the red roofs and that sort of thing, or something. And that just wasn't, we weren't seeing, it wasn't meshing together. And so finally the apple tree, because it is good Apfelhof, which is apple farm, um, is the community. And so we went with the apple trees. And as we tossed it back and forth, and my husband's been a graphic designer for years and years and years, is what he's done for a living. And finally, it kind of became a collaborative effort. We came up with that cover, and so we had to change up the hair. I wanted the curlier hair, and still wasn't what I hoped for, but it was closer. And so when book 2 comes out, I have the cover for book 2. I can't share that yet, but I met someone. Well, we have a new pastor at our church, and his wife has perfect hair for this character. So I said, "Hey, can we take a picture of your hair?" So we did, and we
I
put
love
her
it.
head on. We found another dress and put her head on there, and so yeah, we did it to Steve did that one to blend with the others, and so it was all back and forth between us and the publisher, and so that's how they came about.
Now, I know of others who will do a photo shoot, and they'll use that um, somebody's head, or and specifically in the biblical fiction world, there's not a whole lot of stock photos that really work. Um, and first of all, I don't think readers realize that. Like, they're like, why doesn't the cover match the description? Well, we don't have a whole lot of good
It's so
options.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's so
It's
difficult.
hard, but yeah, but then I've heard people of, some they're on costumes, and then this is biblical times, so it might be a little bit less fancy than your era, but yeah, they've done that, and they've gotten a photo shoot of a model, and then somebody else, Carol Ashby, who does Roman era, she's created togas for her family, and so then they'll pose, and so then they have like the body shape, and then the designer will swap out heads and and all that. We get real creative.
We didn't want to go to that extreme, but you know what I find that frustrates me is that you see the same characters, you see them over and over because there's just a limited number of stock
There's
photos. I mean,
limited, yeah.
there's thousands and thousands out there, but when it comes down to what you specifically want, it becomes much more limited. And so the dress that dress that's on this cover, this one here, I've seen that picture. I haven't seen it particularly on a book, but I've seen that one pop up a lot when I've been searching. So when we were doing it again, and we kept the colors the same. So when we were doing the second book, we found a different dress, and it was kind of funny because that I liked, but I didn't like the color at all. It was very drab, and I wanted something, that was
That pops, yeah.
a little brighter and popped a little more. And so my husband changed the color of the dress, and then, we put Chelsea's head on it. And so he said to me one day, he was looking through Amazon for some books or something, and he comes up with this picture. He goes, "Does this dress look familiar?" And I said, "Well, of course, people do that all the time." But I said, "They kept the color. We didn't. We
Yeah.
changed it,
And that's what I've heard, is to change something to make it truly yours. So it stands
Right.
out in that.
Yeah.
That's
So,
funny. So what would you want people to come away with after reading Tangled Promises?
that's just okay. I had written something out a while back for this, and I'm just going to read it because I'm afraid I'll screw it up if I just try to
Yeah.
talk it through. But where we and our family come from and how we arrived where we are today, there's a story in each of us. A recurring theme to me as I wrote Tangled Promises focused on this verse: the rich and the poor meet together, and the Lord is the maker of them all. Proverbs 22:2. And so in a world so shattered by differences, God calls us to see we're all the same in his eyes. From the unborn baby to kings in the land, we're all cherished by him, and he calls us to forgiveness and love.
I love it. That's beautiful. So you
Once
have
I got
what?
that, yeah,
I'm
once
sorry.
I got that written, I've just kind of like, that's my takeaway.
That's the takeaway. I love it. So you have a wide range of creative endeavors listed on your website. Tell me about your various venues that you've got going on.
Well, I've been a reflexologist for 17, going on 18 years, I guess. People that don't know, that's way more than a good foot rub. Um, in the state of Tennessee, I fall under the health-related boards, my certification.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool, but it's an opportunity for me to be with people because, as we know, writing is pretty isolated
Yeah.
kind of a thing. And so I have that chance, and I get to pray with them, and I get to help them, and it's very relaxing, very non-invasive touch therapy. So yeah, that's my connection to the world besides my church family, and my family.
Okay.
So
Beautiful.
that was one thing. And the devotionals, I think I already said I reached out to others for their stories, and they're so unique, they're hard to explain. Somebody had said, these are something that a group of women should sit down around the kitchen table and just share these almost as a group devotional thing. And so in my reflexology practice, I was at a writers conference, actually, a small writers conference in Middle Tennessee. And I found out that there was a reflexologist that lived 3/4 of a mile from the park entrance to where this event was being held. And so I got with her and I said, "Can we swap a session?" And she goes, "Sure." So, the way over there, I'm thinking, in this profession, there are people that are not believers, obviously, and there are some of the woo-woo and things like that. But for the most part, it's very much of a discipline and not something spiritually crazy and weird. So, but I was scared, because I didn't know I didn't know what to expect. I was like, she could be anybody, she could be anything. And so when I got there and met her, she said, you don't know me, but I've done a little research on you. And she said, I have a group of ladies and we're sitting around my kitchen table and we're doing your Bible study.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that was just
That's
that was
perfect.
so sweet and so special because that was kind of, and so in those, there's just the themes for each one. You have to dig hard through scripture, dig hard through for all those botanicals, because there's a lot of them in the Bible, and just trying to find out, what they were good for. I'm also doing essential oils, which is what kind of got me into the reflexology in the first place. And as I did all that, I had to put it all together, with women of the Bible who I felt like, if something represented kindness or goodness, then I wanted a woman of the Bible to represent that. And then I also had, these individual people's stories. And then I added in music and recipes and treats of the day. And so there's recipes, those are on my website, the recipes that were shared in the devotional books.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
there's a whole menu board, and it's
Yeah.
linked. And some of them are my recipes, some of them are just links to recipes that are out there. But so that there was that amount of creativity, and then the cross stitch designs. My husband would do those in marker renderings, marker illustrations. Back when markers were a thing, it's not a thing anymore. When he tried to do it on the computer, it didn't come out the same. It was
Oh,
doing it. It was just too cut and dry, but there was so much overlapping of color and shading and all those sort of things. And so that became the challenge with that, was to be able to choose the colors and the flosses and the materials that were available and blend and mix to make it, to give it that overall effect that we were trying to do, which our things were much more realistic. And I don't know if I wished I had some of the bigger pieces here, but I don't, to show you. But like, if you can see it on here, this Christmas stocking, I don't know if that
oh,
shows up.
wow.
There's
That's
so much
beautiful.
detail in the shading of the snow and all that sort of thing. And so, and sparkly threads in there and different things like that. And so
Wow.
as I worked with that, so as I was thinking about your questions, and all these creative endeavors, and how I was stretching, how it stretched me differently to do
Yeah.
the novel. And I thought, the writing required a lot of digging, and a lot of digging hard, to lend off this authenticity to the settings, to the time period, um, to the story itself. And sometimes that leads down some amazing rabbit holes, but it also eats up your time,
Yeah.
which is a very big challenge. And then you sadly dump a whole lot of that amazing amount of research that you have, because you just can't use it all.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things. But I also thought that finding the perfect words, the themes, the organization of the story, how it's presented, to keep the reader engaged, is a whole other ball game from writing those devotionals. But maybe a little like coming up with the perfect blend of color and fibers for my cross stitch projects.
You need the right threads in there.
Yeah, so there you go.
So, a serious question now. You just you just received a lifetime supply of the last thing you bought. What is it?
Oh, I wish this were true. I have a lifetime supply of gasoline for my car.
I like it. You can't lose with that.
Can't live without that. And it's a pretty pricey item.
That's funny. That's funny. I'm trying to think what I oh, well, you know what? I was gonna say, I was hoping it was gonna be the last thing I bought was a coffee date with my husband, but that was yesterday. Today was a ladies conference that I go as a vendor. So I guess that's still a pretty good thing. Year
That
after
wouldn't
year, I've
be
got,
bad if you had to do that. Yeah.
yeah, as a vendor, but then it's also it's very powerful. It's a Rise Ladies Conference in Sedona, and it's just got some amazing music and speakers and breakout sessions, and so I'm okay with that too.
Yeah,
Not
there
as
you go.
cool as
That would not be a
gasoline.
bad thing. That's right. But I'm gonna have gasoline for life.
Yeah, you'll be set. I love it.
Oh.
So where can readers find you online?
They can find me at my website, which is lynnewatson.com. And I am on all of the social media, pretty much all the social media outlets, as at Lynn U. Watson. Um, Obviously, Goodreads is a little bit longer thing, and BookBub, I think, is a little bit different the way it's set up. But for the most part, Lynn U. Watson. My Facebook page, you have to add writer,
Okay.
at Lynn U. Watson writer. But other than that, yeah.
All right. Well, we will make
Okay.
sure to have all of those, your website linked, and I'm sure you can get to all the socials
Right.
from the website. Um,
We weren't sure about that yesterday. We had to move the hosting company and we weren't
did
sure
you?
what was going to happen,
Oh,
but
no.
it all went smoothly, except for my email. And then we finally got that straightened out too.
Oh, man. How are you guys at how are you guys at doing the moving? Because I switched from a basic web builder site to a WordPress just recently, and I've had to do a lot of slogging. So I might I'm like, hey, do you know about this? Because I need help.
We'll see what we can do to direct you to the right place.
Yeah. We are writers, we are creatives, we might not be web designers, but
That's right. I am not a web designer. This place did work really well. It did go very smoothly, except
oh, I'm
that,
glad.
which was really a good thing when we had to
Yeah,
move it.
yeah. That makes
Yeah.
it easy. If it's fixed, then you don't have to worry about it for hopefully
Right.
a long time.
The email was a little bit different scenario than what we had been doing before. And so that took a few more hoops that we had to figure out, but
Oh, great.
finally everything's working.
Yeah.
It's another great time. My blog tour starts next week and we're doing this and the family fiction thing. All this stuff just came out. My website's not working.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Great.
right. That wouldn't be
That figures. I promise you can find Lynn online somewhere.
You can find me somewhere, but my website is working. So all
Oh,
good.
man. Oh, goodness. Well, thank you so much, Lynn, for joining me
Thank
on
you,
Behind the Story.
Naomi, and it was enjoyable. And hopefully there'll be some people reading it and reading your books as well. I enjoy those. So
Thank you. Yes. Be sure if you want to support uh, frazzled, trying to work out web design author, be sure to leave a review. That's all I have to say.
all authors, we all appreciate them.
All authors, especially the frazzled web design trying.
Takes you
Uh,
2 minutes and a sentence or two, but it
that's
means a
right.
lot.
That's right. It doesn't have to be much. I liked the book. Of course, if you are brilliant with your reviews, then those are always beautiful too. But it can just be
Right.
as simple as I liked the book, or even I didn't like the book. And that helps with Amazon ratings and algorithms and all the other stuff that you probably didn't realize an author has to deal with.
That's
There's a lot. Well,
really.
good. Remember to connect with Lynn and her books. She is offering a giveaway, a digital copy of Tangled Promises. So be sure that you enter into that. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Behind the Story. Until next time, let us run with endurance the race set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. See you next time.